What was the impetus that pushed you out the door on that first journey when you were 19 years old?
The first real faraway journey was to India, and I was 19 at that time, exactly. India was, we are talking about back in the early 80s. There was still this, among some segment of the young society in Europe, some idea of India as a mystical and magical place, which is, I guess, was brought by the early hippies in the 60s and 70s. And so I decided that India would be my first travel outside Europe. It was not that I was not satisfied with Europe. My curiosity was not yet satisfied, so I want to see more. I always want to meet people from different parts of the world. I grew up in a very small village where, you know everybody and you don't see any foreigners. But I was curious. I wanted to see more. I mean, I just wanted to see it. I live in this world, and we live for what, maybe 80 years, 90 years, if you're lucky, hundreds. But, it's a very short time. So in this short time, I said I have to see a little bit more than just my hometown.
How has that intersected with your passion for photography? Which came first?
I kind of feel they came at the same time. And I do believe the reason why I became a photographer was because I liked so much to travel. Then I said, I have to find a way to combine these two things, travel and photography. And at that time, it was still possible for a person to travel, take photos, and make money out of it. I believe nowadays it's really, really difficult. It's a little bit of a dream because traveling become a lot more expensive, and the demand for this kind of photography actually diminished. Diminished because everybody travel. Everybody can take photographs. Digital has changed all this.
You mentioned that traveling used to be cheaper, which is a bit counterintuitive to me. Like, what do you mean by that? How has it changed since when you were starting out, when you were doing your first expeditions?
Well, I guess maybe it was cheaper because I have less money, and so I had to make it cheaper. That could be a reason. But true enough, I think life got more expensive everywhere, even in places like India where you could, literally, the first time I went to India, I could stay in a guest house for $2 a night, $2 a night. I don't think this is possible anymore. Flying became more expensive. Consider also that when I started traveling, I didn't fly so much. I tried to move overland. I did go the second time I went to India, actually. I went from Italy all the way to Kathmandu, mostly hitchhiking.
Wow.
Which, in Asia, hitchhiking is a little bit different. It's not like in Europe where, you get a free lift. In Asia, you hitchhike and you pay a little bit of money. You contribute to the cost, but it's very, it's very cheap. I remember, I still remember the fee back on a truck from Tehran all the way to Quetta, which is in Pakistan, was $10. So $10.
Wow. So in your travels, 90 countries, a lot of places, but I'm sure there are some that stand out in your mind. Why are some places more memorable for you?
Well, I don't really know. I guess it depends a little bit on the experience that you have in the country. It's a kind of, I don't want to say magic, but there is kind of, I think it's human feeling. Mm-hmm. Places like I said, India, but all the West Asia. I do love Pakistan a lot. I do like Afghanistan, which is a country I visited a couple of times, despite the difficulty in getting there at the time, and also the difficulty in being there, because basically it's been a country at war for almost as far as I remember. Southeast Asia is another of my favorite. Overall Asia, and I believe in the end this is the reason why I decided to set sort of base here in Taiwan.
Well, so there are so many flags here, a statue of Chiang Kai-shek. Like, this must remind you of like early Taiwan when you first came here.
Absolutely. I remember the first day when I arrived from Hong Kong, and I was, as soon as I left the airport, already at the airport, the atmosphere was different. You know, it was back in the early 90s, so Taiwan was not yet the Taiwan that you know now. It was a little bit more strict. I remember also the people at the immigration were not as friendly as they are these days. And then I get out of the airport, and all I see is flags. And then as I took a bus, and then as I get into town, more flags, and I see flags everywhere. And then I realize, oh, I'm really in a country where nationalism is an important thing in the society. In those days, we have also more statues of Chiang Kai-shek. Now a lot of them have been moved to, you know, the Tashi, the famous park, which of course it became even a tourist attraction nowadays.
Yeah, it must have been interesting seeing all those changes that Taiwan went through.
Oh yeah, it was. I believe my time was a transition time of Taiwan. The transition already started. I believe in the late 80s, you know, already started. But early in the 90s was still a transition time, and Taiwan was growing. Democracy in Taiwan was growing. It became more and more what we call a democracy. You know, in the early days, you would cross any bridges, like Chonghe or Yonghe, any bridges, you would still have the military
checkpoints.
Guard standing there like 24 hours a day. They were still there. Checkpoint, there were many more checkpoints than you see nowadays. Nowadays, you have a checkpoint when they want to check whether you've been drinking or maybe they're looking for someone. But in those days, they were more regular, yes.
So what made you want to stay in Taiwan and live here long term?
I like it here. And to me, Taiwan was a real discovery, because I would have never thought Taiwan would be the place that I want to stay for such a long time. It was a very difficult place in the very beginning, language and other reasons. But I found, okay, I am passionate about Asia. I really can travel in Asia, and most of country in Asia I visited numerous times. Taiwan is a good base. It's a good place to base myself, to organize my work after each trip, and also a place where I can, you know, relax for a bit. It turns out to be really the ideal place. Things got better in many sense. It became easier to live here. It became even more convenient, because if you think, back in the early 90s, Taiwan was not really a very convenient place. There were not that many fly out of Taiwan. The airport was relatively quiet every time you arrived. There were not that many flights, not like now.
Well, so you've traveled a lot in Taiwan as well. What are your favorite places here?
In Taiwan?
Yes.
Well, I have to say that the most beautiful places in Taiwan are up in the mountains. I once, and that was an assignment for the magazine I worked for, because I worked for a magazine here in Taiwan. We walked for 9 days, basically from Taichung County somewhere. At that time it was called Taichung County, all the way to Taitung, crossing the mountains, several historical paths in the mountains. It took 9 days. It was really beautiful, because I had chances to witness Taiwan at its best, which is really nature. Another place that stays in my mind, because I went there twice, and I believe I am one of the few photojournalists who went there, is Taiping Islands in the Nansha archipelago. They call it the Spratlys Islands, I think, in English. Yes. And I had the privilege of going there twice, and each time staying there for quite a long time. The first time, I think it was like 15 days or something. And besides not having much to see, because the island is very small, it has a kind of special atmosphere and special appeal. You know, that is a really far away place. That is a real remote place. That is a real hard place to get.
So you were here in Taiwan when the digital revolution happened, and most photographers switched from film and analog cameras to digital. How did you ride out that transition? How did you engage with the new technology?
It was a little bit hard in the beginning, I have to say. First, because when everybody started to the transition between analog and digital, digital was not that good. I mean, there were a few brands that they were better than the others, but overall, the quality of digital was still, in my opinion, inferior to film. Of course, digital it's gone very far and very fast, and now digital yield great results. I have to say, in terms of power resolution or latitude, are you can say superior to film. I don't like to use this word actually because I would say they're just different. As a matter of fact, I still like film. But it was a little bit hard in beginning for me to switch. You're used to do some, it's a sort of like mechanics, you know, you load your camera, you shoot your film, you change your film, then you process it, and once you process it, you have to edit it. And to edit it, you have to look at each frame with a loop. You have like what we say, a light box where you put these transparencies in and look one by one, and then you have mostly in documentary photography, and especially when you are talking about editorial photography, we used to shoot what they call slides or transparency, or chrome, whatever you call it. And so you have to cut it, and then you have to frame it, and then you have to write a caption, and you have very, very little space to write a caption. So it's a very laborious work. It is the same thing, more or less, in digital, except then you do everything with the computer, right? So more convenient, yes.
What do you think that has done to or for digital or photography in general, documentary, travel photography? Now everyone is a photographer, right?
Exactly. Now everyone is a photographer. They don't even call it photographer anymore. They call it digital creator.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people say digital has democratized photography. For me, it has taken work away from photography because everyone is a photographer. Now a news event, if something happened here, immediately you would have the footage or the picture of that event, because everyone, like you just said, everyone carry a smartphone, and right there you have the news almost as it happens. In the past, you have to wait. Think of the old days when they have Vietnam War or whatever, People were like taking pictures, and then you would see this picture not before a week later of the event. Now you have it like immediately. Is this better? I don't know. Not necessarily. The news does not change. The fact does not change. It just you see it immediately, but it doesn't change. If you see it after a week, I don't think it will make it less amazing or whatever. It is the same. Also, you know what? With film, you think more. You have only like on a 120 film, you have only 12 exposure. On a 135 film, you have 36 exposure. Each exposure count. I think is a kind of meditation and a kind of, it makes you think more because you cannot waste. But in digital, you have a card that can contain thousands of images. So you tend to shoot a lot more than you do with film. It doesn't mean you get better results.
Well, thank you so much for
No problem.
sharing your experiences with me and showing me a slice of wild Taiwan.
You can
right
come here. You
in
can come here
Taipei.
in summer. In summer, kids come here and jump into the river. Sometimes this river has a little bit more water. It's a little bit more fun. There's a pool over there. It's a pity that after this typhoon, a lot of trees fell down.
Well, yeah, I'll have to check it out in the summer again. Thank you very much.